Welcome to Pathways to Greatness, the show where faith meets focus and potential becomes purpose. I'm your host, Jeff Forster, mental performance coach, speaker, and believer that greatness begins within. Each episode, we'll uncover the biblical principles, mindset strategies, and daily disciplines that help student athletes, parents, and leaders just like you walk boldly in their calling. Let's step onto the path that leads to true greatness, God's way. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Pathways to Greatness podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Forster. And on today's show, James McLamb joins me, and we have a fantastic conversation filled with nostalgia and absolute application, simple application things that you can do after you listen to this episode. And what you're going to see over the course of the remainder of 2025 and then moving into 2026, I'm going to challenge with each episode a small thing that you can focus on for the week, because I just want to help see you grow and see you gain insight into your life and to truly be on a pathway to greatness. And today's episode is a great way to kick off this intentional focus of application. I know I've talked about it before, but this one we give you two things, and you'll hear it throughout the episode, and then we recap it at the very end. And it's just wonderful. James brings a lot of insight and information. He's the founder of Generation Youth, and it's a youth coaching platform, meaning that it's coaching coaches. So if you ever had a desire to work with young people, James and Generation Youth will prepare you. They go take you through, I'm pretty sure it's an 8-week course where they teach you the ins and outs of how to coach young people and then also how to set up your business. So it's a great opportunity for that. He's also the co-founder of Igniting the Next Generation Summit. It's a great resource for parents, coaches, teens, everybody involved. Gathers a bunch of coaches together and people of influence to share short clips in a web service. Well, it's a web service, but it's a webcast that you're able to receive via email, and it's put out every day over the course of the actual summit. It's great. So anyways, you need to tap into that. I'll have the information in the show notes. But I'm not going to tell you any more about the conversation because it was a great one. You'll see that I really got into this one, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So ladies and gentlemen, James McLamb. All right. Welcome back, everybody. And today we have the great James McLamb.
Thank you, Jeff. Not sure I was ready for that introduction. Kind of caught me off guard there.
That was awesome. For those of you who are watching either on Spotify with video or on YouTube, you can see James's face when I said that. It was fantastic. But you are great. You're a wonderful human.
Well, I appreciate you. And our friendship has meant a lot to me since we got to know each other over the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and it's not surprised to any of my audience that listens of how many people that I've been connected with through social media, and then also not just through social media, but through other people that I've met on social media. And we all say bad things about social media, and I completely agree with most of those. But as you well know, it's how you use it. And it's just like anything. It's a tool that you can use for good, or you can use it to promote bad for yourself. And I feel like that I've curated a really cool algorithm of great people, and then just it's neat also the 1 degree of separation of when I meet you, then I look of people in common. It's unbelievable.
I know that is amazing. Is how many people that we did not know we had in common, and or just one step away from somebody that we know as well. So it's pretty amazing in that. And even though those of us who work with youth feel like sometimes we work in silos, that we feel like we're out there by ourselves alone, there is a significant, philosophy that we need to have, that we need to join arms together and work together. And so these kind of connections mean a lot to me.
Yeah, because it's the philosophy, and I like what you said, is the think and grow rich mentality, is that your success does not take away from my success. And when we're talking about working with young people, good grief, like you said, can we not lock arms? Because if we don't gather together to help them, I don't know who else we can help.
I am so glad you said that, because that has been a burr under my saddle. Something that really riles me is when people feel like I can't work with you or celebrate what you're doing because it'll take away from what I'm doing. And we see that a lot in business coaching and business speakers and trainers. They feel like if I'm sharing yours, you might grab my audience. But I think our mission, those of us who feel called to work with youth, and it is a calling, is so big, it's so large that we can't afford to have that kind of mentality. We have to rely on others. If I have a list, or you have a list and it's thousands of people big that we've accumulated over the years, we know that there's a significant part of that list that our message is not resonating with the way that we would like for it to. But if I expose them to enough other people, maybe they'll find someone. Maybe they'll find a Tammy Matheny or a Jeff Forster or a Brittany Richmond or someone like that that's in our circle of friends, that their message resonates with them and it can help them. And so that, to me, is just as powerful as me helping them if I'm able to introduce them to someone else. I know someone who has rejected that kind of philosophy, thinks that, I'm going to work with youth now, and since I'm going to work with youth, everybody that I know that works with youth, I'm going to push away so that I can gain my own audience and I can make it can be mine. And I'm like, good luck to you, but I got a feeling you're going to be failure, because that's just not the way it works in our field.
Well, and then do you want that mentality teaching your young people on how to move forward? Or is it, hey, let's do this together. We rise by lifting others up. It's, what is it? The, rising tide lifts all ships. And so if we all come together, it makes the lift a lot easier than if we try to do it by ourselves.
And that is the driving force behind the summits that we do. The Igniting the Next Generation Summit is, cultivate a group of presenters that have a similar mindset. We want to help elevate youth. We want to help empower adults who work with youth. Let's do this together. Let's share our audiences together and grow our audiences. But most of all, let's share these messages to a larger group so that we can help people. And it's been successful. We've seen a lot of those things successful. Yes, it adds to my list, but I also know that some of the people that come to my list from the Ignite Summits, my message may not resonate with them. What I do may not resonate with them as much. So,
yeah, and it just takes, it's options. It's a different voice, it's the same message, but different delivery, different voice. They're different tactics of how to approach the same thing. Just like in business, everybody has a different way that they can reach success, and the way you do it and you have success may not be the way I do it, and I can have equal success. So it comes back to just low self-esteem and them trying to, if they feel like that they have to own that they have something on you, and it kind of builds them up, versus if you have that servant leadership mentality of, well, how can we serve one another, learn from each other, and we have our own path. There's plenty of kids out there. There's that need all of our help. And it's like the good book says is that the harvest is plentiful and the workers are few. And there is so much work to be done. And every day that you see a youth lost is a youth lost. And it's somebody that we could potentially have reached.
I so much agree. And I wish we could get through to those, but I believe that those that are coming from backgrounds that are not youth related, that is a harder thing for them to grasp initially, unless they're really come into it with a humbleness to say, I don't know anything when I'm doing it all, and I need your help. But oftentimes, especially those who are coming in from like a business coaching world, they come in saying, oh, I know how to do this. Look how successful I've been over here. Working with youth to be a piece of cake. They're just smaller people. I can do it with 30-year-old business executives. Surely I can do it with a 16-year-old. They don't know what you're doing. No, you're out of your mind. You have no idea what's going on in their head. It's just a completely different world. And if they would open up their minds to those of us who spend our days, our nights thinking of this, we can help them. and we can work together to reach more. What is it? There's what is it in the United States? 350 million people, and 26% are under the age of 21. I think there's enough people to go around.
Yeah, there's plenty. There's almost too many.
Yeah, there's enough to go around. We can do this together.
Yeah, for sure.
You jumping into the fray and wanting to help is not going to hurt my standing. There's enough to go around.
Come on. Let's bring it. All right, James. Well, before we get further in, because I want to talk about the Ignite series and what you do there, and then also everything that you do around Generation Youth. So, audience, this is James McLamb, and he's the founder of Generation Youth, the Igniting the Next Generation Summit. He's written books. He coaches coaches. So if you have a desire to learn how to be a youth coach, James is your guy. But James, I always like to play a would you rather game before we get started. Are you ready?
Okay, let's jump into it.
Okay. So would you rather go 100 years, would you rather go forward 100 years or go back 100 years?
I'm a history buff, so I would go back 100.
So when you go back 100 years, is there a particular place that you'd like to see and observe?
Well, my favorite resting place, renewal place is the mountains of North Carolina. And every time I'm there and I see how it's developed and it's really nice, I keep thinking, what did the Appalachian Mountains look like in the early 1900s? And how did these people, I mean, I know it was a rough area in that time, but how would you have communicated? What would you have done? What would have been these beautiful vistas and settings? Did these people realize how beautiful the area they were, or was time so tough for them because of the lack of resources that they didn't acknowledge it day to day? I would love to go back there and see what was going on, to see what's happening, to be able to experience those types of things in that environment.
That's an interesting perspective. When you were speaking, you talked about the lack of resources and missing the beauty. I would think that nowadays we have too many resources and we miss the beauty.
We need to write on that. We need to write a blog post or something on that.
Yeah, because when you talked about that, and I'm sure life was extremely hard. And it's just like, if you live at the beach, how often do you go to the beach? And it's that mentality. But when I think about while you were talking, it just hit me is we have so many resources and so many things to distract us from the simple beauty of just going out and looking at a vista.
That's a good, that's does lack of resources or more resources cause us to miss what's in front of us, cause us to miss the blessings that we have every day. Now I've got to.
His wheels are turning, y'all.
Yeah, I was like, I need to jot that down.
Yep, and it's a good. Well, let's hammer on that for a little bit. Is that it's just that simple, and I believe you and I have spoken about it. I know I've spoken about it with other guests of just the concept of just sitting, being where your feet are, and appreciating what you have. We're told to have gratitude. And whether we don't have resources or we have too many resources, if we don't appreciate what's around us, and that comes back to gratitude, is the simple boiling everything down of, I'm just thankful that I'm here in the simplicity of the moment with the people that I love. And that's it,
And that concept is something that we really need to figure out. How can we convey it in a way that sticks with emerging generations, with younger people, because they are always looking for more, seeking more, feeling like they have to have more. And I don't think that's something new, but it just manifests itself in a different way now, with the way technology and everything is going. So what a concept that we can kind of work on to instill, and then to be grateful for what they have and where they are. That's a whole coaching process if you could get them to have that one characteristic when you got through coaching, you're probably going to have so much more success with the other areas that you wanted to help them through. Just having them understand to be grateful for where they are will improve their self-image, will improve their relationship skills, will improve their outlook on life and purpose.
Well, and I mean, you think about it, a couple of 50-year-old guys have struggled with that. And here you are, if we, like you said, is if we can help a young person, even just have a little bit more, you don't have to have this huge, quote unquote monk type mentality where all of a sudden you're there and you're in the moment, you're able to really grasp it every single time. It's just, if you can just sit down and look at your toes and go, okay, I'm here, I'm grateful. There's people that have a lot worse and there's people that have a lot better. And I'm just grateful to have the people around me, and boil things down to just being simple.
Jeff, my wife is very good about trying to help us instill gratitude, even though she'll be the first to admit she probably is the one that struggles daily to be grateful for the things that she has. She's always busy working, very consistent that. But during the month of Thanksgiving, which we, most people try to think of, we have these little cards that sit on our kitchen table. It says, I am grateful for, and then you fill it out and you just put it in the slot. And we always encourage the kids to do this. And when we get together as a family meal, during that month, we want them to do that. What I've noticed is that the very first few days that we try to instill this in them, it's a very difficult thing for them to do. They're struggling with what to do, and they'll write stuff down. I'm grateful for macaroni and cheese. I remember seeing that one time. I'm like, really? This is all you can think of today is you're grateful for macaroni and cheese? Okay, whatever. But then towards the end of the month, after working on that practice, you see a little bit more depth. I'm thankful that I have friends who will support me, when I struggle, or, I'm thankful for my parents who encourage me, even though I don't acknowledge it, and they'll write it. And of course, we ask them not to sign it, but we're their parents. We can recognize their handwriting easily, so I know which one it is. And I can see an evolution of their mindset over that time, that it went from the macaroni and cheese to something more. So it's a process. And I've seen as the kids have gotten older, one is married, one's still in college, and one is in high school. And I've seen them, especially during that college frame, not even want to write anything because they're like, I'm not in that world right now. And, I'm coming home and mom and dad want me to write this thing. This is silly. And they'll kind of avoid it, and you'll have to remind them of it, and they'll grudgingly write it out. But it does evolve. It does evolve to the sense to now the oldest, who's married and stuff, she'll come in, she'll grab the thing immediately. And just start writing. Her husband comes in and writes it too. And so it's that instilling into it. And then it convicts me. I haven't written anything in a while. I need to go over there and write as well. So.
Yeah. And you're absolutely correct. And I would challenge the audience, if you're going to take one piece of application to your life away, is write down one word of gratitude a day, have a little book, and just say, I'm grateful for, and then just write a word and watch what James just shared happen to you. Is the low hanging fruit of the silly things, because it does feel silly at first.
It does.
And some of you may not, and may immediately be able to go through because you're at a different point of life. And the older you get, the more grateful you are for the smaller things, because you don't take things for granted, because you do see that we're not immortal, and you start to see signs of aging, and you start to get nostalgic, especially when your kids start to grow up. Then you start to scroll through and you see pictures and you're like, I wasn't expecting to cry today, but I just saw a stupid reel on Instagram that made me cry. Or, you have Time Hop on your phone and it pops up. But why wouldn't you say that I'm grateful for Time Hop? Because it provides me a chance to see memories from years past that I had forgotten about. And so it's a wonderful tool to bring those simple times, because then you really remember, at least I do. And we've struck a nerve here, because I've just been in this very nostalgic phase as my son is preparing to graduate high school and go on to his next chapter. is that you remember sitting on the couch watching TV. That ended one day. And I don't realize the day that it ended of us sitting together watching a movie. Now it's, will you come down? Like, okay. And then they sit there for a little bit, and and you just appreciate now that those are gone, you appreciate the simple little things.
Yeah, and there's a reason why gratitude journals are so popular on Amazon. I mean, if when we were writing the Ignite journals, and they were the publisher was trying to do marketing for it, she kept coming back to me and saying, hey, everything here is related to a gratitude journal and stuff. How do we need to frame it in that way so that the ads or the related, the algorithm will show it as a related subject? Do we need to frame it differently? Do we need to add this keyword on this? And I was like, well, I would like to have an aspect of that, because there is an aspect in the journals of gratitude. But she said, because that's the number one thing popping up. She says it's not like mindset journals for youth. It is gratitude journals for youth. It is trying to get them to understand. So it's obviously hit a nerve with so many other people that they're writing about it.
Yeah, and again, when you think about those things, is you have journals, you have a notepad on your phone, you have sticky notes. You don't allow just the formality of a journal keep you from doing it. And so many people use those excuses like, okay, I'm in this. I'll start once I get my journal. Once I order my journal, I'll start. Well, no, just start. The piece of paper, again, I would say 95% of the people on the planet are not very far from their phone on a regular basis. And every phone has a note app that you can record stuff into. So
and I'm positive, even without looking it up, that if you went to the App Store and typed in gratitude, a free app would show up that would give you access to be able to guide you through this type of journaling activity. I have no clue what it was called. I have never seen it myself, but I guarantee you somebody has created that.
And if not, James will be on it as soon as this podcast is over. He's hopping. Okay, so let's go to the second question. So I that's why I like these questions, because it sparks a lot of really good conversation. So the next one, would you rather always know the right answer or always make the right decision?
Wow. I guess obviously make the right decision. I'm a trivia buff, and I retain things pretty easily. But I don't necessarily make the right decision. So a lot of times I'll have the right answer to a question. My wife, we stopped looking at game shows, trivia shows on television, because they'd ask the question and I'd pop off the answer, and she was like, how do you know this stuff? I'm like, that's just something I know. I mean, I really don't know. I just heard it somewhere and it stuck with me, or I read it somewhere. But the decision-making aspect, that's a totally different thing. Of going, do I go left? Do I go right? What do I need to do in this situation? So I think I definitely would go with making the right decision.
Yep, I agree with you 100%. There's no right or wrong answer to that, but for me, it's the right decision, because I have a life littered with bad decisions.
Me too. Probably made bad decisions yesterday. So.
Yep. Okay, now this one may be the most difficult, James, so just be prepared. Okay. Would you rather have pizza or tacos?
Pizza. Thin crust. I tend to be a thin crust type guy. I'm not a bread as well, so I want to make sure I get the toppings there.
More what are your toppings?
Because, I'm a meat guy, so if I can't see the sauce and the cheese because there's so much meat on the top of it, then that's what I want. So, which is
now, do
really
you have a place?
Not consistently, no. Not consistently. We used to when the kids were younger and we were less conscious of our diet and health. Back in the 30s, my 30s, when the oldest two were very young, we would probably go to a place called Milton's quite a bit. But since then, we've become a little bit more. I want to eat that cauliflower pizza stuff. I was like, that's just not, I don't understand that. That should be outlawed. And I know somebody's listening right now. They're like, oh, it's great. I love it. It's wonderful. You're an idiot. Well, probably am, but I don't like it. So. My wife eats it. She's like, "Oh,
Yeah,
we gonna have cauliflower pizza tonight." And I said, "No, we're not. I'll do something else."
there's some of those gluten frees and the cauliflower that are good if you're a thin crust guy because it's like eating it on a cracker. And so there's certain places that will go because my wife has a little bit of a gluten intolerance. So if we can get something that's gluten free that's not the size of a teacup saucer, we will get one. And some, like I agree with you, aren't great, and some, like, you know what, that's really good. I like it.
Now I miss my days back in growing up in high school in a very rural community in a very small outside of a very small town. There was a Pizza Hut there, and those personal pan pizzas that you would get, that if you touched the pan, you were going to get third-degree burns on your hands because they were piping hot when they came out. I miss that. I mean, that was thick crust, but there was something about that, the red and white checkered tablecloths and the red, light signs and lights, and I miss that type of pizza. But those things don't exist anymore, so.
They do. There's Pizza Huts down here, and they taste exactly the same, which is scary.
There's not a Pizza Hut in Raleigh, North Carolina, that I know of that you can go in and sit. There used to be one that you could go in and pick one up. And I'm like, what's the fun of that? I mean, you want to go? You want to go?
Yeah, I've been seeing on Instagram
red cups.
Yeah, there's a place in Ohio. There's a few across the country that somebody's remodeled the Pizza Hut to look like the Pizza Hut of the late 70s, early 80s. And it's awesome because I remember, the salad bar and going, and because the thin and my dad, we did the thin and crispy pepperoni, and it still to this day tastes exactly the same. So every time I eat it, I think of my dad.
Pizza, they bring you maybe a pitcher of Coca-Cola or something. And while you're waiting for you go and put your money in the jukebox, play your favorite songs, and probably have enough time if you had a quarter to play at least a game on, Miss Pac-Man or something like that until the pizza got there. And that was a great Friday night there.
See, we just went nostalgia and gratitude of the simpler times. Okay, so if you came with a warning label, what would it say?
Oh gosh, I came with a warning label. It may cause you to get into trouble. I mean, I come up with ideas sometimes that, and I dive into them and say, "Hey, let's do this." I mean, like the summit that we've been doing now. We're in our 6th one. When we came up with that idea to have this summit full of speakers that want to pour into people who work with youth, and I approached our mutual friends Jeff Hagee and Tammy about doing it with me. They were like, "Yeah, let's do this," and they were like, "How? When do you want to do this?" I was like, "I don't know. I think we can pull it off in the next 45 days or so." And they thought I was crazy because this is a big event. We didn't even have a platform, we didn't have speakers, we didn't have an audience, we didn't have anything. And it was May, and I wanted to do it the 1st of July, and they thought I was a lunatic. But we did it. So I might cause folks to have trouble because I'll come up with these ideas and I want to jump into them and I'm ready to go if I'm passionate about it. So.
Yeah. So it's like, hang on.
Yeah.
Hang on, because it's going to be an adventure. Well, James, as you know, as I started Pathways to Greatness podcast now 3 years ago, to bring on people like yourselves to share ideas, share concepts for people, just to understand that not every path is straight. I don't know of any path that is straight and linear from point A to point B for people to reach greatness. Also, everybody has a similar but different definition of what greatness is. And ultimately, I just want people to learn how to not quit. I don't want people to quit. They just need to continue to be resilient and persevere. So with all that being said, I'd love to find out, what is your definition of greatness?
Well, I think it's excelling in what you're called for, excelling in what you're created for. That when I got out of college, I was a teacher, and and I loved every aspect of it. And I excelled in it, and I thought I was on my road to becoming, on my path to becoming a great teacher. It takes a while to do that. Well, when my oldest was born, my mother convinced me to go and take over my family businesses. We ran a nursery and farms and some real estate businesses. And she wanted me to come in and work with my dad and do this stuff there. And, the fact that my wife could stay at home with our daughter and we could make good money. And I did a good job. Some would say a great job because we grew and, I was successful, but I did not feel like I was living in my purpose. And so if you'd asked me during that time, do you feel like your life is doing great things? I would have said no. Even though, financially and business wise, it was, but it was not what I was called for. And it's only when I've really stepped back and let God lead me in that direction of this is where you were created for. This is what I made you for. Everything that I've brought you through, every experience, every job, every camp that you worked at, all these things. If you take a look at it now with the experience, this is what I've called you for, and you can do great things in this. Now I'm feeling like, okay, I'm on my way I'm on my path to greatness because I am living in my calling. I'm living in what I was created for, and I'm allowing that to guide me instead of, other things. And these other things are happening as well. The other things are following as well. Was it a linear path? Absolutely not. Were there bumps in the road? Many bumps in the road. Were there setbacks? Yes. Were there times where I looked at it and said, well, I'm glad that I have this aspect of my life, this business aspect of my life that can still support me because, this youth thing ain't working out like I thought it would. But now I'm beginning to see how all that is fitting together to work. So, I'm in my mid 50s and I told my wife, the second half of my life, because I told her, I said, I'm planning to live 110, 120, something like that. That's where I figure, so the second half, this is what we're going to do. We went to our business attorney to kind of set up estate planning and stuff. And he was like, when do you plan on retiring? I was like, I don't understand that word. What I'm doing is not something I want to retire from. What I'm doing is something that I want to, I'm not planning on retiring. They're going to wheel me out, take me out on the stretcher or whatever. That's when I retire, is when I'm gone. I'm not stopping this process because I feel like this is where I'm at. This is where I can do the most good. This is where I can do the most great things.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today about, not in these exact words, but it hit me while you were talking, is society puts a timeline on our life. Mm-hmm. And it dictates the key strategy or the key points that they say are key points in your life. You have the 16, you get your driver's license. Then you have 18 that you've graduated high school and now you're an adult because they say that you're an adult. Then there's 21, you can drink, and there's the other things that happen to that. 25, you can rent a car, and you go on through all of these processes of where society has drawn a line of what you need to do and be at that moment. And when you listen to your life story, and mine's probably not any different, it's you have these ebbs and flows mm-hmm. of key points that don't align to what society has aligned to. Yet there's this stress for young people to have it all figured out at 18. Then by 30, they need to have a good job, making good money, be married, ready to go. And you look at it, and again, we talked about earlier, you look back, and that's such a lie. I mean, to expect an 18-year-old to figure out what they want to do for the rest of their life is silly, because what I thought at 18 and what I thought at 30 would not point to where I am at 52. Mm-hmm. And like you is, I'm just getting started. And I want the audience to hear what James had said earlier, is that, now he feels as if he's living in his purpose and he's moving in, and that's probably going to continue to evolve as God opens your eyes to what other things that you need to do. However, everything you did leading up to this point, you needed to do to get you ready to move forward. So don't discount if you're not feeling like you're in your purpose. You are in a place that God put you to learn. And like we said earlier, have some gratitude about that moment.
And I had to take a step back too and not have that envy, jealousy aspect of it. Oh, look at this person. They found theirs earlier. They're doing similar work than I am, and they're so much farther along than I am. If I had not wasted X amount of time, or I had to take a step back and say, look, all this is part of my journey. Those years away from teaching, those years away from the day job being working with youth, prepared me that when I was able to move back into it full time, that I had experiences that others did not, that I had aspects others did not. And because I still had that passion to work with youth while I was doing the businesses and stuff there, I was able to volunteer and do things in way that I probably wouldn't have done if I was working with it daily. You know, when I was teaching high school, I did not want to teach on Sunday morning at my church youth, because I'm like, hey, I'm there. I'm with these kids 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. Give me a break at least once the weekend. I don't want to see them on the weekend. And that was, probably a wise choice at the time. I would have burned out. But as soon as I got out, I poured into it. So I saw a new aspect of it. I volunteered more at camps then. I started coaching baseball more active than I ever had before, and was able to pour into that aspect with young men. Volunteer in all these different ways with whatever activities my children were doing that I would not have done if I was working in it day by day, because I would have had that attitude. Hey, this is what I'm doing over here. I need a break from it now. I don't need to have my life 24/7 related to it. But those experiences now have given me insight, and I think some perspective on working with youth that I would not have had otherwise.
Great point. And, I know we talked about having a gratitude journal and taking the moment from application. I would say the second thing to apply is to do what James and I are doing now, is to look back back at the moments that have been a positive influence to get you here. It may have been a negative experience, but it created a positive outcome later, because you may have been self-reflective over a bad decision that you made and going, okay, I know I made a bad decision. What made me make that bad decision? What can I do to not do that again? So there's a lot of things that you can do. And I would say is do a fun self-reflective moment to go through, and encourage your young people to do the same thing, because they're building now. And if you can teach an 18-year-old or a 16-year-old to look back a couple of years, and they learn that skill of self-reflection and gratitude, they can build on all of those situations, and also not feel like that a bad decision is a ultimatum to life, because it's an unfortunate truth that a lot of these kids make a bad decision and they feel like that there's no way out.
Yeah.
And they ultimately take their lives, and it's awful, because there is no decision that you can make here on earth that it deserves that you can be redeemed, you can receive forgiveness. And that's just what we need to encourage young people, is to say, I did it, I own it, and now let's learn from it.
My wife is filling in for the choral director at my youngest daughter's high school. The choral director is on maternity leave. She'll come back in January. So my wife's been taking her place since October. Now, this is the first time my wife's been in the classroom in 25 years as well. And so I asked her, I said, write a blog post that I can put up, and you can find it at generation-youth.com. If you look at our blog section, you'll notice which one it is. It's the one where all the pictures and stuff are pink. That's definitely not written by me. But if you look at it and stuff, and she had some great insights into what she's learned working with youth today compared to the way it was, when she did before. And a lot of it is because she's had that time to step away. And during that time stepping away, she volunteered. She led ministry teams. She worked with young ladies, high school girls, teaching them, how to sing and be worship leaders at church. So she's got this perspective of doing things from a different way, that now that she takes it in the classroom, back in the classroom, she's able to see things differently and help. She also freely admits, though, she says, I don't have the energy to do this full time anymore. in which I understand that. So.
It's like I'm not a grandparent. Hopefully, no time soon. But that's what they say is being a grandparent is great because you only have to do it in small doses and then you give the kid back. So, well, you mentioned a couple of times, you talked about, Ignite Youth. We've talked about the summit, and I know that you've got some books that have come out. So why don't you help the audience get a better idea of what those books are, where they can find them, how they can utilize them in their life?
Well, last spring, I had a parent come to me and say, my son struggles the first couple of months of school every year. He's excited about getting started, but it seems like he gets lost. And so do you have something that you could help them with, the resource, to get them started correctly? And so I just started jotting down some stuff, and I was just going to help them through a 5-day coaching program, something that I could guide them through. But what it evolved into, and what I started writing for this young man, he was going to be a freshman in high school, was a 30-day journal, a 30-day getting started journal that focused on 4 different areas of their life. One, their mindset. That's the first thing that they started. We talk about first. Let's get you in the right mindset. Let's get you in that gratitude mindset. Let's get you in a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. Let's get those things. So let's talk about those first. And then their self-image. Let's talk about who you think you are. Let's do away with the negative things. Let's start looking at it and starting to realize you can form your own identity. Then we're going to talk about friendships, relationships, the third week, about how that grants. And then the last one is dealing with their purpose and goals. How do we work on those things? And that became a journal that has each of those 4 topics has 7 days. We have an introduction day and a closure day, and that ends up being a 30-day journal. And we did that for each grade level, freshman through senior years of school. And we just called them the Ignite journals. Each one of them has a subtitle depending on what they are, for their grade level. But the Ignite journals, you can find those on Amazon. You can just Google my name on Amazon. You'll see all the books I've written there in the Ignite. Or you can go to generation-youth.com, and under our resource sections, you can find it there. Now, we're actually going to be running a special at the beginning of 2026. Not sure when this is airing, but in 2026. And if you're hearing this and it's sometimes later, we can work out something as well, because we have book enhancements that we offer from our website that are like parent guides to help their student go through it. Or if you're a teacher, even how to integrate it in the classroom, or little posters to pick up with it. Some additional questions for thought-provoking. We're going to do a promotion that if you buy the book and you send me a screenshot of, hey, I bought it here on Amazon, or a screenshot of you holding it when you get it, or ever what, we'll give you a code that you can download those for free. Those are, and be able to use those and to enhance the book, because we really want it to work. We also know that sometimes a kid needs a restart. That first half of the year didn't go as well as they thought. So these journals are not just for August and September. They can be for January too. They can really be for any time, but especially for January, I need a restart. I need to get it back on track. I need to get them back on track. The journals every day, there's a quote, kind of a teaching section. Most of the time it's a story about how James was so stupid when I was a high schooler, about the idiot things I did, or some things that I saw as a teacher, or working with youth. So there's a little story there, a little lesson based on it, and then some questions, 3 to 4 questions that'll provoke some thought. You're looking at 5 to 10 minutes at the most of their day of reading it that can help get them in the right mindset that day of thinking through certain things. Maybe it's think about gratitude, or how do I choose good friends, or how do I be a good friend, or those types of topics as well. So I'd love for folks to check that out. They can find it at generation-youth.com. That's the easy way, or through Amazon if they just want to Google my name.
Well, I'll get all those links from you, James, to make sure we put them in the show notes. So if people want to find them, they can find them, go there and find them. And I was, again, while you were speaking, I was thinking, what kind of application could a parent have by using these journals for themselves?
Wow. Well, we talked about nostalgia. I think if they start looking at this, they're going to start. When I was writing them, I kept thinking back to, wow, what was little James like, as a 14-year-old or, as a 15-year-old? How would that have helped me? And then, am I still struggling with some of these areas? Do I still lack the ability to focus only on my mistakes and not learning how to fall forward, how to realize that failure is an event. It's not a person. I'm not a failure. I just failed at something. Let me learn from it and move on. Am I still struggling with those? So even though the stories and the applications are going to be related to that person who is in those teenage years, I do think you could take it yourself and look over it and say, I find some value in it as well. You possibly even can take it and say, I don't think I could get my son or a daughter to read something for 30 days. Well, maybe you use it as conversation starters, not just reading it to them, but maybe as a conversation starter in carpool line, or, as you're taking them on errands or they're wandering around the house, you just kind of bring up, hey, I was thinking of this. What do you think about this? Or I was reading this story about this author and how he was so stupid when he was 16 years old. And there are a lot of those stories. So.
Yeah. And that's when you were talking, that's what I was thinking of is one, when I was in the corporate world, you see so many people as they move up the ladder, they forget how it was when they were in the position that they're now managing. Mm-hmm. So as parents, how often do we forget how it was when we're getting berated to do our homework? We're getting berated to clean our rooms and do all the having the parent-kid conversations. Mm-hmm. And we need to remember that. The other thought was exactly what you said at the end is conversation starter, is that, by hearing the examples that James shares in the journal, then now you know what? I was reading a book and it made me think of a time in my life when I did X, Y, and Z. And I'm really curious is have you had to encounter anything like that so far? And if not, or if you did, how did you handle it? And if not, how would you handle it? Mm-hmm. And now you have a conversation. There is nothing better on the planet than having a good conversation with your child. It's the best to having a real back and forth conversation that has some depth and it's not grunts and groans and, all of the things that we normally get from our young people because we ask them terrible questions and we expect them to elaborate. And when we go, so how was your day? Fine. Well, that's a terrible question.
I know. I'll pick up my daughter from school and I'll pick her up today as well. My first inclination is when she gets in the car, she's 15 years old, is ask her, so how was the school day? And I know that's going to be the answer. So I'm always trying to reframe it and mix it up some so she doesn't anticipate the same question. So I'll use things like, so what was something new today that your teachers shared with you that you didn't know before? And I don't know. There's nothing. I was like, are you kidding? What classes did you have? Okay, so you're saying there was nothing in history today that they shared that you didn't know? Now, some days there might legitimately be nothing new, and I have to drop back and focus on something else. But sometimes that works. Or what was something that your friends said or did today that made you really excited or really bothered you, or something like that, to kind of get them to think and just see where it goes. Because you're 100% right. How was your day today? Or what did you learn? My dad used to ask me that all the time. What did you learn at school today? I didn't learn anything. You didn't learn anything today? What good is that? Why do you need to go to school? And you just stay home and work on the farm. You don't need to go to school if you ain't going to learn something. I'm like, well, I guess I learned something. No.
You're like, I don't want to work on the farm, so I'm going to say I learned something.
I learned I didn't want to work on the farm today.
Yep, there you go. You learn something every day. But no, it's important. So James, I appreciate you again stepping into your calling and continuing to create resources for parents and young people because we need it. And like we talked about at the very beginning, there's no shortage of a need to fill. There's just not enough stuff out there. And the more we can push to our young people, we can save one. We can help one. If you think that you're going to try to help a million, you're going to freak out. You're never going to accomplish your goals. But if your goal is to help one person today, one young person be more successful today than they were yesterday, then that's a huge win.
I agree 100%. And it's what I wake up hoping to be able to do, and look for opportunities for that. So it's amazing when you're looking for those opportunities to pour into people, they come up. I was at the gym this morning and standing there listening to a friend of mine have a conversation with something, and it was like, they were like, my son and daughter are, they're going to be out of school pretty quickly for Christmas, and now that they're older, it doesn't seem to be, it's saying they don't seem to be as excited. And I just wrote in a Substack article last week that talked about how that loneliness for teenagers during the holidays is much more pronounced than you think. You would think that, they're going to enjoy it just like they did when they were a kid. But as they grow older, they tend to be more lonely and isolated because we're taking them away from their routine, that school routine, sometimes from that friend routine. And it causes them to be, but they're surrounded by family. We're going to go really see extended family. Well, that's great. And I'm sure there's some excitement there, but still you need to be conscious of that. So I was sharing with them that those opportunities are always there if you're looking for them.
Yep, I agree for sure. Well, what would be something else you'd like to leave the audience with today?
Well, I would just hope that if they need some assistance, some guidance, some insight on how to better impact, to pour into the young person in their life, whether it's their own child or one that they work with or coach or something, that they'll reach out to people like you and I, and let us help them, let us guide them through this, or let us direct them to someone that we know that can help them. Because Jeff and I will be very, very honest and tell you that we may not always have the right answers to be the best fit, but we will work very hard to find you someone in our network that does. And we're grateful enough to have an expanded network of people that we really trust to be able to do this with.
Amen. So how can people find and follow you?
Well, the best place to go to is our website, generation-youth.com. They'll find all the links to books. They'll find the links to the Substack there. If they're not familiar with Substack, it is a place where people can write long form articles, which I'm just starting to do, just been in there less than a month. And really, we come up with an article every Wednesday that's going on. And of course, we're recording this in mid-December, and this month is really focused on the holidays quite a bit. But all the links will be there. If they want to go to find us on Instagram, they'll be able to find us there. We're at generationyouth.com on Instagram, as that's where we set most of our things. If they want to go to LinkedIn, just look for James McLamb on LinkedIn. They can find me personally there.
Awesome. Well, James, thank you for all the insights. I enjoyed this conversation. I knew I would. We always have great conversations when we get together. And I know the audience gained some massive benefit. So again, the challenge that we want to present to you to have an application from the show is, one, do some gratitude. Mm-hmm. Start a gratitude journal. Be super simple. Just think of one word that you're grateful for. And then the second thing would be is just do a reflective timeline on all the things that have gone well, in the sense that created a positive outcome for you today. Could have been a negative situation, but over time you see the value of that. So please take those applications and put them to your life. James, again, stick around for a second after I hit end, but I thank you very much for the time that you spent with us today. So ladies and gentlemen, James McLamb.
Thank you so much.